Welcome to University, a podcast for young people navigating life's big transitions. I'm Anne-Marie Cheresso, your host. On University, you'll hear stories from college students. You'll get tips from experts. And occasionally, you'll hear from a parent's perspective on how to manage this time of change in your life consciously. Find yourself, find your purpose, find your people, and pursue you fearlessly. Hey everyone, it's Anne-Marie again, and I'm really psyched to be here and introduce you to Skye Deitelbaum this week. Skye is a recent graduate of the University of South Carolina, and she majored in broadcast journalism and minored in sports and
Entertainment management.
Yikes, that's a lot of fun stuff.
Yes, it was a lot of fun.
So this week we're going to be talking to Skye about what it's like to be a recent graduate, what are the next steps, job searches, what's my future looking like here and now and going forward. So welcome and thanks for being here, Skye.
Thank you so much for having me, Anne-Marie. I'm very excited to talk about all this.
Yeah, so those of you who don't know, Skye and I go a long way back. I've known Skye since she was like a tow-headed 2-year-old, and she was running down the street, and she and her mom and I became great friends, and our kids grew up together and spent a lot of time together, and then they ran off and moved to North Carolina in middle school, and of course we're good, close family friends. And Skye, you were my very first podcast interview.
Yes, I remember. And
that I never published.
Yeah, it was a learning experience.
It was a learning experience for me and for you. And maybe I'll still publish it. Maybe we'll edit it and publish it. It was a deep dive. We talked for a long time.
We talked for a long time about a lot of things.
A lot of things. But that was like over a year ago.
Yes. So now I'm at a very different place in my life.
Totally different. So yeah, tell me where you are now and what is it? Congratulations. What does it feel like?
Thank you so much. It doesn't feel as different as I thought it was going to be. Like, I had a couple months to accept it. And once I graduated, it was just kind of crazy. Maybe when the fall comes around, it will feel a little weird not to go back to school. But it feels good and I feel very accomplished. But of course, this time is so crazy. And I would say the last 2 months of school were very stressful as far as the pressure of what you're going to do when you graduate, because the first question everyone asks you is, what's your plan? What are you going to do? Do you have a job?
As I was saying this, the next steps and what your future looks like, my body sort of contracted and I was like, yeah, oh, I wonder if that feels stressful. So
it is a little stressful because you usually are expected to have an answer. And I think it's okay to not know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I felt a lot of stress and anxiety not having a plan or something stable that I knew I could rely on. Because some of my friends had jobs before they graduated. They had this sense of security as what they were gonna do. And that's something I didn't have, and that worried me for a little bit until I kind of stuck with what I wanted to do after college. So for me and my major, I decided I didn't want to go into local news, which is what I had been doing for the past 2 years. And I knew
an internship, or was it part of your school program?
So both. I had an internship. And then my last semester of school, all it was running basically a television newscast every single day, Monday through Friday. And then I started working at a local CBS station. So I was an on-air reporter. So I basically had a part-time job being a reporter. And I decided that wasn't something that I wanted to do. If I could easily have graduated and gone into a very comfortable career with that, but I decided that wasn't something that I was going to do, and shifting my desires and the future, it's what are you going to do for the rest of your life? You know, you're have this pressure to figure that out now, but you really don't have to have that like pressure on your back. And I knew something that I always wanted to do was travel. And I wasn't sure how I was going to make that happen. So eventually I was like, do I go for a job? Like I'm very educated now. I have so much experience, like these credentials, that I could have something so stable. But I decided the last month of school that I was going to commit to traveling.
Mm.
So that,
Wow.
which is a little risky. And I just, once I made that decision, I felt so much more comfortable, even though it's kind of like a riskier path.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing now, I also, just a side note, I found out that a lot of my friends also didn't have jobs lined up after college. And
Mm-hmm.
some people were doing this, like the same thing as me, which what I'm doing right now is my current status is I'm working at a restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and living at home to save money
Mm-hmm.
so I can like get cash fast. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also like doing other things, like working for a photographer part-time. I'm like in the process of trying to teach English online to kids in China, all ways that I could save up money to prepare for traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And my plan to travel is to use that as experience. So I'm in journalism and sports and entertainment management, and I love, something I know I love is creating stuff. And so I'm using my travel to hopefully build my portfolio and use that into whatever career I choose after I'm done with my traveling. But
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a possibility that once I leave to, I think I'm going to Australia, that
Mm-hmm.
like, who knows where it's going to take me? You know, like I don't have a set plan and I'm okay with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
That sounds amazing. You sound really clear right now.
Right.
But I imagine there was a time when you weren't feeling so clear. So,
Yes.
take us through that process. Like, when did you start to question what you wanted to do and what you were going to do? And, like, yeah, when did you start to question all this? When did that start to evolve and bubble up? And what did it feel like? How did it show up?
So I think it just, of course, it felt like a lack of control when I was questioning everything. And like, even now, sometimes like I question things because like you don't know if you're always making the right decision or like what to do, because I also have other interests as well. So like my personality is, I can be very all over the place and I can do I describe myself as really random. So sometimes I want to do like all these different things and it's hard for me to focus on one thing because I
Mm-hmm.
also have a passion for sports and like lacrosse, which is something I could pursue too. So I'd say like the last 3 months, like feeling these questions come up was very difficult for me. And I also use my parents as a resource to help support me in my decision. They've been, we just, one day when I got home from college, we sat down and we talked about my plan, my travel plans, and what I would do in the meantime before I left. And they were very supportive, which I was very lucky for that. And
Mm-hmm.
that gave me less of a questioning mentality.
But when did the questions first start to arise? Because, well,
Like
first of
whether
all,
I wanted to
whether or
have,
not you wanted to pursue anything. Because I know that, first of all, tell me or remind me and tell listeners, did you know what you wanted your major to be right when you went into school?
yes,
Okay, so you knew that off the bat.
yes, graduating high school, I always wanted to go into sports broadcasting. That's what I wanted to do. That's why I wanted to be broadcast journalism and sports management.
So that was
And
easy back then. Like
that
that
was
was,
easy back then. Yes. But I didn't know anything about it. You know, like that just was like a dream that I had. And like I could still see myself doing something like that, but I know that for my things that I desire, I want to do, I want to explore first. And I want
mm-hmm.
to have all these cultural experiences and like do things that I probably can't do when I have a, like I don't want to say a mainstream job, because there's so many other jobs out there that like maybe will allow you to be like flexible and, like travel for work, but not in the sports broadcasting world.
So, one of the things I hear you saying is you just have a desire to be free and travel for a little while before you tie yourself down to anything.
That's exactly how I feel. Yes.
Yeah, because I
And
don't hear you saying I no longer want to pursue sports broadcasting
yes, that's
okay.
exactly how I feel. And like, that's also something that, like that's my personality. Like I'm very free and like loved to just like do anything. Like I like say yes to anything. Like I love, like that's just me. And I know that I feel like if I was in a, like a tie down job, that I would have this like desire to stray from that, which is
So,
something like,
do
what if
you have a? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
no,
Finish.
you're fine. Like, what if I were to like quit or like not be happy because I wanted to do this and that? So I kind of like, I say, like, I need to get this out of my system before I go, before
Hmm.
I like get a serious job. So, but like I said before, like I never know what opportunities are going to arise when I travel, like who I meet, like what other things I learn that might spark my interest that I want to follow. So, but I don't have like the sports broadcasting thing out of my head too as like a possibility after I travel.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is you're really at this place where you're really open to exploring all possibilities and seeing what comes
Yes.
your way, and you're not eliminating any options right now.
Yes, I'm not. But like of course that's scary because you just graduated college and you're expected to get a job and make money. And like the money thing is like also like you can't forget about that. Like you can talk about traveling, blah blah blah, all this stuff, but like I know that's something that I need as a foundation for me to support myself.
Hmm.
So I'm still like that's another like insecurity thing when you don't have a job graduating college, or I'd say a job that someone would expect you to have once you've graduated college.
You keep saying someone would expect.
I don't,
So who's the
yes,
someones?
just it could be, for me it could be anyone. Like it could be family, it could be someone you are introducing yourself to,
Mm.
it could be like just I meet a lot of people like just randomly, and like that's the first thing they ask. And so I just maybe that's my in my head that they're expecting a certain answer.
Well,
So
can you notice the part of yourself that like wants to give an answer so that you have a certain experience when people ask you that question? Like, I
you know
don't
what?
want people to judge me.
Yeah. So I usually lead with I was a reporter,
Hmm.
kind of to validate myself that like I did,
Yes.
yes.
Great catch.
Yeah. So I always say that because I just think, of course, I'm noticing right now, I value what other people think of me. And
Of
maybe I'm
course
like
we do.
afraid, yeah, like afraid of judgment. So that is something that I guess is important to me and that I've noticed throughout this. Just this is another part of graduating college and this transition from college is the real world. So many people have questions about what you're doing. And
Yeah.
for me, like just like the someone thing, like everyone in my circle and like my extended circle wants to know, which
Mhm.
is totally like an okay thing. I want to know what other people are doing. Like, what's your plan? Like, what are you going to do? It's just a natural thing to say, and that's what I'm saying. You're expected to have this, in my head, this like certain answer. But usually the response when I tell people my plan is like, that's so cool. Like, that's awesome that you're doing that, which is good to feel. But it's also, again, like, it's always scary, but I've just come to accept from like positive things that I've read, and you just have to trust in yourself. And I think fear is a good thing and it's like a motivating thing. And I think that comes with a lot when you're graduating college and trying to find whatever you do, like whether it's like you are finding like a real job, like that transition is scary. And you just have to like push through that. And it like, I think it encourages some good behavior, like as far as like productiveness and like getting stuff done and doing stuff for yourself, whatever field you're in, you know.
What do you think your biggest fear is right now?
I think my biggest fear right now is like definitely if I want to say like financially, if I'm going to be able to, because I plan to get a job once I want to get a work visa and like go to Australia and like get a job. I know I'm going to be able to support myself, but there's also like that fear of not knowing if I am, you know. Second of all, my second fear, and I'd say like these are my two big fears. Other than that, I think I'm good. But I'm going, going.
Just two. I'm the only human in the world has only two little small
I
fears.
don't know. I don't. Of course, other things are gonna. Okay,
No,
maybe.
it's funny.
Okay, wait. Maybe like losing touch with some of my really special relationships here, like my social scene and like my people, something that's really important to me. And I love being able to like, you know, like road trip here, like travel here for the weekend to visit my friends. Like that's something that I'm probably going to lose if I'm on the other side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I will make new friends. And then like the third thing is I'm like my company when I'm traveling. Because I'm not going by myself, which I think I could, but it would be a little scary, like as a like female traveling alone in a foreign country.
Uh-huh.
I'm going with my best guy friend, and he is, I think, going to bring his girlfriend too. So it's going to be the three of us, which is an interesting dynamic. So I guess another fear of mine is like, what if like that friendship, I'm not worried about that friendship changing at all, but like what if they have relationship issues or his motivations for traveling like changes than mine and I might like deviate and go by myself. Maybe like the fear of how what's going to happen with that dynamic
Yeah,
is
so
definitely
I
scary.
keep hearing you point at like the fear of the unknown, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
stepping into the
Yes.
unknown. Like I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And we call that like
Yeah.
courage,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't know. And I just want to point at something for a minute because there's this illusion out there that I think you were pointing at the very beginning of our talk where you're like, everyone wants to know what we're doing. We get this degree and we get this
Mm-hmm.
job and we're quote unquote secure.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually not true.
Yeah.
We don't actually know if we're secure. We just believe that we're secure because we've created some construct that like that we've created a social construct around having a particular kind of a job and a particular kind of way of doing that job that provides the illusion of security.
Yes.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say like that, you know, you're not most of the time like you don't feel secure like
Well, it's you feel secure up here in your head,
yeah.
but we don't actually have any real security anywhere, whether we're
Right.
traveling, whether we have a job. Like, so that's an illusion. So there's
Mm-hmm.
that. But also, you're stepping into all these unknown circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna travel. I'm gonna travel with these people. I don't actually know how it's all gonna go. I don't actually know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what's gonna happen on the other end, and that's scary, but it's simultaneously exciting.
Exactly. And something that I say to people is I actually say this quite frequently like I don't know what's going to happen. And before I even committed to traveling, I said I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm excited for whatever happens. Like I was like the mystery it excites me
It's so your
because
personality too.
yeah, because like I said, like I'm super random. Like I love wherever I life takes me.
Hmm.
So, and I find joy in that. And I also find a little humor in that. And my friends think it's funny too, because if they hear some like crazy random story, they'll be like, I'm not surprised at all because
That's so
that,
Skye.
yeah, exactly. And so I enjoy that mystery, but I'm also like ridden with fear as well. So,
So what are you doing with the fear? Like if the fear's here, right? You're ridden with mystery.
mhm.
What are you doing with that fear?
you know, the fear of the future can sometimes consume you, I guess, like in the moment, like if you are thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to think about it because I can't, like I practice like mindfulness, you know. So like I'm mostly when I'm thinking about whatever's going on in my life right now, and I'm not thinking about the future because I'll just deal with that when I get there.
When you get there.
So that's how I handle that fear of the unknown in the future. In the meantime, I'm dealing with whatever's going on because there's always stuff going on, you know. Like I can't handle both fearing of the unknown, fearing whatever's going on right now. So
So you said you practice mindfulness. Tell me a little bit about how you use that, how you use it in your life, and what ways you practice.
I guess a lot of the mindfulness I try and do is just, a being in the moment and just like absorbing what's happening because still in my life, like there's still a lot of like stressors or like complicated relationships with certain people that is what for me like you causes anxiety. It's the relationships with like whether it's like a romantic interest or like maybe like a friend is something that for me is where I really need mindfulness and just
So take us through an example. Like you get triggered in a romantic relationship or a relationship of some
yes.
sort, and you start to feel anxious or fearful, right? Because anxiety is fear.
Yes.
What do you do in that moment when you start to notice? Like, first of all, how do you notice it?
Well, physically like my chest gets tight and like I feel like my heart and like my mind is running and I can't seem to focus. And that comes up like usually like if I feel like a relationship like starting to fade or something and I feel like rejected or like I'm losing something is when I really need to bring it back to like myself and try and think. I do use I use the future because as well to think about like where I am now and like how things are going to change. But like I just try and think about like I want to say like what's going on, how I can just go about my life in like a very purposeful way, doing stuff that matters in the moment rather than think about
Going
things
too
I can't
far.
control. I
Things you can't control.
try and do that. Obviously, I can't do that all the time, but I really try to do that because those stressors for me used to be something that really, really, really consumed me and my time and my emotions and would inhibit me from doing other things like to that
How
extent.
would it inhibit you? So you would get stressed, you would get anxious, you'd be in fear, right? Basically, that's what it boils down
Mm-hmm.
to. And then what kinds of things would you do that would inhibit you? Like actual activities. Like I can list off mine, but I'm curious what yours are.
Well, I would sulk all the time and, not be productive. Like say when I was in school, like my schoolwork or like I wouldn't, be that engaged with my friends or like I wouldn't do things that I needed to do, like at the very worst, like not going to work or something like that.
So you'd withdraw from friends, withdraw from relationships. You would like
And mostly like mentally, I wouldn't think about anything else other than what was is bothering me.
yeah, so you're obsessing.
Obsessing, completely obsessing and not thinking about like, and that's where the mindfulness comes in is like you have to take a step out of that mentality and like come back to like, like there's other things going on other than this
This
relationship that in
thing
the grand
ruminating in my head.
yes. That's I have a problem with like that. And so, I mean, as an example right now, so I like was in a new relationship and that is like basically ending right now. And it's something that I was very invested in. But for the first time, I think like healthfully in a healthy way handled that process that used to be like so like
Consuming.
devastating,
Yeah.
consuming to me. And people are like, you seem fine. And I'm like, well, you know what? I am really sad about it. And it's hard for me to accept. but you just have to accept it. And I just got to do what I'm doing right now, which is be mindful, enjoy that I have this time with my mom and my family, because I'm going to leave, and like my job,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Beautiful. I love that.
So that is something I'm really proud about myself, because I mean, and you know me in the past, something that just like completely took over me. So
I
that,
can even like I can notice because I'm looking at you, right? We're recording a
yeah,
podcast, but I can see you.
yeah,
I can even notice there's still some sadness here now,
yeah,
like
of
a little
course. Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I, you know, like I don't want to give up on like a relationship that I was really hopeful about, but it's just something I need to, you know, just accept,
Mm-hmm.
and like you've taught me, like acknowledge, like notice those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like I take it for what it is. I know
Yeah.
that I can't let that sadness like control me.
Mm-hmm.
And also another thing is when I'm still troubling with is like my behavior, or like the people that I like, how I prioritize friends and like things that might be best for me, rather than like wait around for this guy, like clear my schedule to be like available when he like wants to like see me, maybe, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Instead I should be like focusing on like friends that like I know are going to be long term, and that I could like hang out with them rather than,
Focusing on the things that fill you up
yeah,
rather than things that don't necessarily fill you up. So places you
yeah,
can control. And I
which is
want to,
hard, which is hard because sometimes I want to prioritize like other things that are not going to fill me up, you know.
yeah,
So
because
that's still hard for me, but I'm noticing that like I need to do take that
yeah,
step.
so I want to take a mindfulness moment here because I want to point to. So, A, I appreciate how much you're integrating and using mindfulness to support you. I think that's awesome. And it's not always easy.
Mm-mm.
And it's not this simple, like, thing that everyone out there says, like, take a breath and everything will be okay. That's not what it's about. Mindfulness is just this practice of noticing what's occurring,
Mm-hmm.
whatever's occurring when it's occurring. And you're totally doing that. That's so awesome. And I heard you say a few minutes ago, um, I'm sad and that's okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so mindfulness is noticing, like, wow, I don't like what's occurring. I'm sad about it. And I can be with my sadness. I can be careful to watch for my patterns of trying to distract myself from my
Mm-hmm.
sadness, like
Yes.
busying myself or, obsessing or sulking or any
Yeah.
of those behaviors. I can just be with my sadness and let that be.
Yeah. And I do want to point something out that I just realized as we're talking. For some reason, that's been easier to do since I graduated college.
Wonder why? Why do you suppose?
I want to maybe like speculate that like I like have less things going on than I did in school, because of like school and like friends and all that kind of stuff. And it's something I wanted to do when I graduated, which I kind of thought is like a transition to adult life, was really like focus on myself and like create the best version of myself, because you know, like I was super like messy and like not healthy and in school, and that was something that I really wanted to do. And now that I think I made that a priority, because I don't, you know, like I don't have a 9 to 5 job all the time, like I'm able to like focus, I think, like on myself more.
And prioritize on yourself. There's not time to do that in college. Did you find it was really hard to prioritize self-care?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I didn't want to prioritize self-care. Like I just wanted to hang out with my friends, yeah, go to work, do what I had to do, go to school, just do it, you know? And like where I could put in self-care, like I try and put it in, you know, just like keep myself,
It wasn't
um,
important. It
no.
wasn't important. What was the most important thing?
And like having fun. Well, I did have fun, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, like I did go out with my friends, and like that that was the most important thing, and getting good grades, because that was also an important thing for me, is having fun and getting good grades, which sometimes is, you know, like the negative side is that is there's some repercussions that like might not be healthy, you know. So those were the important things for me. And I definitely put like my mental state like on the back burner. And also, this is, I think, like kind of interesting is when I wasn't happy, or say I was like not doing things that were good for my mental state, like I almost like indulged in those bad behaviors. Like that I didn't, like I embraced like not being happy. And like sometimes that's
It's a
basically like I was
self-fulfilling
also going,
prophecy.
yes, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like noted I was also going through like I was in a really bad relationship, like most, like a not healthy one. And that was also something like big part of like my not being happy, or and like not good behaviors for myself.
Yeah, it's a reflection of the not bad relationship was a reflection of what was going on inside you. You're attracting a
Mm.
not bad relationship and you're not treating yourself well, and it keeps going round and round in this cycle. And it's hard to get out of that cycle.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. So
So
that
what
was
do
a
you think?
big part of what of like my not happiness in school.
By not being happy? Were
Yeah.
you there was so I heard you say there was a big part of me not being happy in school. Was there a time where you really weren't like it sounds like you enjoyed school, but you weren't happy in school?
I was super like that's the like I'm realizing it's making me sound like I didn't enjoy school. I loved school. Like I loved learning, like I loved my classes, I loved my friends. But this bad relationship that I was in at the time sometimes like hindered some of those things.
What was the biggest thing you learned in the quote unquote bad relationship?
I learned a lot of things, but I think I got really down on myself and I thought like a lot less of myself. And I think realizing that, you know, this is not healthy and I can be so much better of a person and like be myself not in a relationship like this. And that was a huge lesson because I know I'm going to take that going forward and I need to like prioritize myself and what makes me happy rather than making putting all my efforts into making someone else happy that's not really providing me anything in return other than like negative things and the occasional like good moments, but more bad moments than good moments.
Wow.
So I think like just, you know, I was so unsure of myself and being out of that relationship, I'm like 100% more sure of myself and I know myself better and I like know my self-worth and that going forward. And you know, like also like knowing me, like a big thing for me is like relationships. Like that's
Mhm.
also something that is a priority for me. So through this whole life process, college, post grad, like for me specifically, like that is something that I prioritize.
So what do you think the greatest gift of that relationship was?
I think that like experiencing being in love for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Yeah. And that was like beautiful too, you know, like despite like it not being a healthy relationship, it was, I definitely was in love. And like it was like a mutual in love situation.
That's so fun. That's like a
Yeah.
big part of your college experience is
Yeah.
all these, you know, these parts of growing yourself academically, but also growing yourself personally.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that maybe like for this podcast and other people listening, is you really have to, it's kind of hard, but you really have to take those lessons and kind of, you know, like put them in the back of your brain, like once you graduate and like realize like what you learned then, like, but just rather other than school, like going forward and how you're going to, you know, like make yourself a better person and like going forward because those things are super valuable as far as like people and like life and that kind of stuff. So I think that's very important if we're like, you know, talking about like post graduation.
Yeah, I think that is a beautiful piece of advice for anyone going through like transitioning at this time in their
Yeah.
life. And you you hit the nail on the head. Like every lesson is here to teach you more about who it is you're becoming in the world. And
Yes. And I think like people tell you like you're going to have so many life lessons, but I think you really need to focus on what those lessons are. Like you need to take time and think about how those are benefiting you and remember that, like I think like to the detail, like you need to know, because if you don't, then you're just going to be like, think about that time, you know, and try and like remember that time that it taught you a lesson, but you need to focus on like the why. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you used your college experience, not only to grow academically, but to grow personally.
Yeah. And I think I'm really realizing that, you know, like now, and like even more so like talking to you and like reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think just for everyone, that's really important. And probably after this, I'm going to like go and share that with my friends because I think that's really important.
I love that. You're sharing with tons of people here. I am so grateful for you sharing your story and your journey and your future and all of that. Like, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
So excited for you. And I cannot wait. I personally love this idea of taking a break and traveling and creating some space to further deepen your relationship to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And so thank you for that validation as well. It's always good to hear that.
Thanks, Skye. Thanks for being here.
Of course, anytime. I had a great time. I love talking.
I know. I can't wait. So we're going to check in with you. How long are you traveling?
That's another unknown. I'm thinking like 4 to 6 months, but
who knows?
Who knows?
All right. Well, we're going to keep checking in with you and follow you on Instagram because I'm sure it's going to be super fun to watch you on Instagram.
Hopefully,
where do we get you on Instagram?
Skye Deitelbaum, Baum. That's my handle.
Awesome.
But, yeah, and so maybe I'll start a blog, which is like kind of mainstream, but you know, I'm probably going to do it because for myself and maybe for other people.
You know? Awesome. I'm going to be watching. I'm sure everyone else will too. And to be continued. It's kind of like Skye Deitelbaum, to be continued.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Glad you're on this journey with me.
Me too. Thank you.
Of course.
Big hugs, big kisses.
Thanks for listening to University. If you liked what you heard, I'd be absolutely thrilled for you to share with a friend, and equally grateful for you to pop over and rate and review on iTunes. It really helps. You can find more information and stay in touch over at university.u on Instagram or at University on Facebook. I'll look forward to seeing you there. If you'd like support navigating the stress and chaos, and you're ready to create a more fulfilling college experience, I offer live weekly group coaching calls every Thursday, 4 to 5 Central Time. It's a place to gather together, to be seen and heard, to reduce your stress and learn how to be in control of your life and create a life you love. Give the first week a try for free. Check it out. For more information, email me at annemarie.university@gmail.com or click the link in the show notes below.